Hi guys, thanks for joining us again. I want to do a real quick recap before we move on to the video. Part one, if you go back a couple videos, will show us talking about how we moved from the United States to Colombia, myself, my wife, and our three daughters, and how we explored an area called Chía, which is further north than Bogota City. Part two, we talked about how we enrolled our children into school and how we thought about the different areas in the city, Bogota, like the parks and such. And now we're going to move on to part three, where we're going to address how we found an apartment. So stay tuned. All right, the final step in our process, we need to find a place to live. So far we've been living in an Airbnb for the past 1 month, and now January's around the corner and we need a 1-year lease. So Eunice, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how we found a place to rent?
So before we left the States, before we even moved, we had been communicating with different real estate agencies to try to find someone who can show us around once we got to Bogota. We had viewed several different apartments before, but even when we got there, I think it kind of helped us to kind of framework in terms of what we really wanted. So we went to many different like Facebook listings and other real estate companies, and we met a realtor. There are several realtors, but we found somebody who spoke English, and this person was really able to help us navigate the system, to know how to get an apartment, how to get our rent paid off, and how to set up a bank account, how to work all the technicalities that come when you're in a different country, because everything is not just exactly the same, obviously. So this person was really helpful and helping us do that. He was always available, and I mean, we had a great experience because of how helpful he was.
His name is Javier, and we're going to leave his information in the description below. Another thing to consider here that we didn't know about was that they have a ranking system. It's something called strata, and it goes from number 1 to number 6. The higher numbers, like number 6 for example, indicate a higher luxury, if you will, or cost of living. Exactly. And so we actually ended up looking in places that were a highest ranked, like strata 6. We didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly where we were when we landed in Bogota, and that's something to consider as well. So, you know, again, going back, we had about 1 month from the time we landed in Bogota to find schools and find apartments and set everything up so that we can stay in Bogota. And I think that was important to note. You need some time. Don't just try to come here and expect things are going to work out. It takes time, obviously, just like it does in the States, to find an apartment and find a school. And especially if you're coming over like a winter break like we did in December, you know, where communication is a little harder because people are on vacation, schools are closed, it's hard to visit. You need some time to look into things, and that would be my advice to you. So now we found an apartment and we have to furnish it. So what do we do for that?
So they have different places where you can shop for furniture. In our case, we visited this store named Exital. It's a line of a chain here in Bogota where they sell pretty much everything you would want. We found this particular facility where they also had furnitures, and we went to shop there, and we found some pieces that we felt were just appropriate for what we needed. We were able to order it, and then they had it delivered to our home. It may not have been, you know, the most straightforward process as far as the delivery, but it did happen. We didn't lose any money. Everything came in, and they also provided us people to put together the furniture. And here in Bogota, things are cheaper. Different materials and things of the sort are cheaper than what we would have to buy in the States.
And, it worked out. That's all I'll say. From the time we landed here, we figured everything out, and I'd say we moved into the new apartment in the beginning of January, and within 1 week after we moved in, the furniture was all set up. So, and that's important if you have kids, right? So we felt very fortunate that things worked out so well. We didn't really know if it would work out. But again, we had a lot of support online. We had a lot of support with our realtor, and we're just very thankful for that. And it's been a wonderful experience. Anything you want to sort of wrap up with or talk about? Anything we sort of missed and you sort of want to?
I think that what we did was pretty gutsy, especially because it was during the pandemic. And some people would say, well, it's too risky because of the children. I wouldn't have done it. But I can say that we don't regret it.
Yes. Yes.
We don't regret
We don't
making
regret
that
it at all.
decision. I think even if for our own personal sanity, because with the pandemic, it felt like we're trapped. And we had wanted to move before. We just didn't have the time, like we didn't get to the time when we were supposed to do it. But now that things were opening up a little bit, we found our chance and we jumped at it. And the things that we always say to ourselves is that, this is the time to do something like that because we have other responsibilities. We have family, and, sometimes you may need to stay in town because you have family that need you. And right now we didn't have those responsibilities, and the children were young enough. So we didn't feel like when we took them out from the system where they were, it would affect them emotionally as much. So they can adapt a little bit better at this type of living. And we found that it was the best decision to make because the stimulation itself of being in a new environment, of learning a new language, I think it compensates for not being able to per se go to school in person, because that for a while the children, at least the older ones, were not able to go to school in person, and now we're working into going to school in person. So it's a beautiful place.
It's gorgeous. It's really
If you're up to it, I highly recommend checking out Bogota, Colombia.
Definitely. I agree with every word you said. I want to add on one thing as well. In my case, one of the biggest life changers, and I kind of talked about it in this video, was the redemption of my time. When my wife and I were in the States, with kids, we were running them everywhere to all these activities. We were making them foods. We're being parents, obviously. And we didn't really have as much help as we have here. We did have family support, and we're very thankful for them. But this is definitely different. We have a lot more people to help, and it takes time off of our plate. It takes responsibilities off of our plate. Our kids are safe. They're being engaged in a very meaningful way, and it's freed up a little bit of time, or I say a lot of time, for my wife and I to work on other things. We can work on date nights. We can work on taking care of ourselves in doing yoga or going to the gym, or we can really focus in on the things that we put aside. And let's face it, as parents, I think a lot of times we put ourselves last, and we don't make enough time for ourselves.
Yes.
And if you're not careful, you fall apart. You can't do that year in, year out for decades and expect to be healthy. You need to have some time to take care of you. And at least for me, I know that wasn't the case. I wasn't really taking care of myself as much as I should. So definitely, that was one of the biggest things I'd say that I realized, was being able to take care of me.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Till next time.